Alright, y'all, so today I want to do a very quick review of the Super Mario Galaxy movie. This movie, at the time I'm making this video, came out over the past weekend. I luckily got the chance to see it and wanted to give you my honest impressions of it. And first, for my initial reactions, I will say this. It's a decent sequel overall. In terms of comparison to the first movie, now granted, I haven't seen the first Mario movie from Illumination in quite a while. I liked it good enough. I will say this though, even though I haven't seen it in quite a while, I can kind of tell this movie, unfortunately, is not as good as the first one. I feel like there's certain aspects of the story and plot that I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on here. But overall, it's a decent film. I didn't walk out thinking this was horrible. I have seen worse movies. I didn't get a visceral reaction from watching this, but I feel like some aspects it did good and some aspects it did, well, poorly. So let's get into it. I'm going to get deeper into my thoughts and go into this. So I kind of went into this movie with very little expectations. I mean, the first one was good enough, but I wasn't extremely impressed by it. I feel like it kind of played it safe. This movie, I feel like, at least to a positive, I'm going to kind of start this out with the positives. I feel like this movie does take a little bit more swings creatively than the first one. I think that the problem is that it doesn't exactly follow up on those story beats it sets up, and it drops the ball in a lot of others. But I do think, creatively speaking, it's a little bit more daring than the first one. I think visually the animation is fantastic, even for Illumination film. Higher standard and quality with the Mario movies they make. I mean, they clearly put a lot of effort into the animation, and it looks great. I mean, I love the art design, the world. I'm not really a huge expert on the video games. I've only played them a little bit, and I've seen all the other previous Mario films, including the infamous 91s, which I've always liked that movie. Sue me. But that being said, the art design and the characters are pretty solid. I really like the art design and the world, and the galaxy aspect of it is really cool. There's even a slight few references here and there to certain other Nintendo properties I was able to pick up on, which were awesome. Like, I think the Super Scope is kind of shown off here, which is a weird Super Nintendo thing that I'm sure a lot of kids wouldn't get. And of course, Star Fox. And now to kind of go into more of my positives, I like the animation. I like the voice cast for the most part. I think everyone does a really respectable job. Even Chris Pratt as Mario, I think, is a little bit better. I was more mixed on his performance in the first movie. Here, at least in my opinion, he does a pretty good job. And Jack Black as Bowser is really good. And they also got, I think, Colin Farrell or Powell or something. He got to play Star Fox. Now, obviously, full spoilers ahead in this review. I know it's probably too late to say that. But another huge pro to this movie was the introduction of the character Star Fox. They give you a brief introduction to him, and he's like basically a side character. And it's awesome. I totally didn't expect Star Fox to be in this movie, and he looks great. And I think the actor they got to voice him is really good. His animation, his ship is just like the games. Honestly, was a really surprised character. And if you get him, you get him. I mean, if you don't get him, that's cool. He's still a cool character in his own right. But I really enjoy the fact that they brought him into this movie, and it was really, really cool. I also like the fact that they attempt, like I said before, to do some interesting things story-wise. They sort of have almost a redemption arc for Bowser in this movie, where he's kind of learning that the things he did in the past weren't good, and he's trying to make up for it, even though they ultimately dropped the ball on that. That was an interesting story beat. I also like a lot of the locations they choose for this movie and the planets. It's really cool stuff. I can't really tell you if it's exactly from the games, but it's really cool. It's really creative, and I thought it was visually really cool. The score and the soundtrack is pretty solid also for the most part. All the actual, production, filmmaking aspects of this movie are top tier. It's really, really solid. I thought the story of Bowser Jr. trying to get his dad back, and there's kind of a father-son kind of dynamic there. That was an interesting part of the story. I liked it. There's a sort of plot revolving around Mario trying to ask Peach out. Sort of an interesting idea, but, And now I'm going to this is going to be a little bit of a transition to my cons. Another thing with this movie that really frustrates me is it feels really half-developed. And I'm not really too sure if it was a budget thing or they had to cut out a lot of scenes or they just didn't have another draft of the script. Because I'm going to be frank here, while this movie definitely has a lot of interesting story elements, it most of the time never really follows it up on. And I think that really makes this movie feel really half-baked. For example, they set up Bowser of a possible redemption-like character. And then he just sort of goes with his son and he becomes like an evil guy at the end. And I thought it was really confusing because it's like, wasn't he supposed to be more allied with Mario? And we're going to get more of a redemption for that character? And then they just kind of forgot about that. It's kind of confusing. And there was also a father-son kind of dynamic where maybe the son was going too crazy and too much. And you would expect a scene where Bowser stands up to his son and teaches him better things. That never happens as well. It's really strange. There's no resolution to the story beats they set up at all. Peach and Mario's kind of thing. Mario is kind of interested in asking her out. He almost does so, and then things happen, and then it doesn't really happen for like any of the movie. And you would expect, at least by the end of the movie, he asks her out. It's really quite confusing. And I would have expected more explanations for Rosalina and the little cute star guys. And just in general, they just give you a half-baked explanation. And also the ending. This movie ends way too quickly. Like, I was kind of shocked. Like, they defeat the super weapon. Rosalina gets rescued by Peach. And Bowser gets defeated. His son gets defeated. And then the castle sort of comes back and they're rebuilding it. And that's the end of the movie. I was shocked how quickly this movie ended, especially since, like I said before, there are so many arcs that need to be talked about. Like, there's not a conversation between Rosalina and Peach about their past. There's not a scene where Mario asks Peach out, as far as I can remember. There's no, like I said, redemption stuff for Bowser. It's all really half-baked, and then the movie just, like, randomly rushes to an end. I'm not too sure if there was cut scenes or cut elements. And it's really quite strange. And it really disappoints me. And I think this movie becomes more of a half-baked sequel. That's the biggest problem with this movie. And in my opinion, is what really makes it detract from the original. The original, as far as I can remember, I can't remember off the top of my head because it's been years. But that movie had sort of arcs. It wrapped up those arcs. It had a finish line to its characters. There's not a lot of finish lines being put here. The movie just kind of abruptly ends. And it's really quite disappointing. They have like a little bit of a post-credit scene kind of possibly teasing more adventures of Star Fox, which I would be totally down. He's definitely one of the biggest pros of this movie. But that being said, I was quite disappointed that this movie is just half-baked. I'm not sure if just it was a bad script and that the people just writing this didn't really understand character development and arcs, or there was things behind the scenes that caused it to be like this. I'm not exactly sure, but the whole movie is just quite strange and half-baked. There are a lot of thrilling action sequences, and there's some really great moments in this movie. It's just all disappointing because the story doesn't have really a great finish line, and arcs and characters feel massively underdeveloped. So, yeah, that's my thoughts ultimately on the Super Mario Galaxy movie to kind of quickly wrap this up. It's still a decent movie, but feels really half-baked, problematic, and honestly could have been a lot better than it actually is. So, yeah, hopefully you have a good day and peace, y'all.